This is a question from Monroe Richardson. The Wall Street Journal reported in March that oil producers are producing less oil and may have reached their peak in the Permian Basin. Given the major positions of both Occidental Petroleum and Chevron in the Permian, would you please explain the rationale for Berkshire's significant holdings of both those companies, considering that future outlook for oil there?
Well, there's no question. It's really interesting about oil, and Charlie knows way more about oil than I do. When did you buy that royalty in near Bakersfield or wherever it is? But that was before I met you, right?
Yes. No, it wasn't before. Yes, it was. It was just before. You're right.
Yeah.
And that goddamn royalty is still paying me $70,000 a year.
What'd you pay for the?
$1,000.
Yeah, yeah. Now that's the opposite of the Permian. My dad bought $1,000 or $1,500 worth of royalties before he died in 1964. He left my mother. My mother left him her two daughters, and my older sister died, and my younger sister's here today, and she gets these checks every month, and she knows about all these different fields and what they're producing, and that's the reality of half of the oil production, or something around that, in the United States, and then the other half is shale. And if you've gone to the movies and ever watched oil, you've never watched the things that are pumping out Charlie's royalties in California. You see these gushers of oil. Well, in the Permian, this should sink in on you. In the first day when you bring in a well, it may be 12,000 barrels, it may be 15,000 barrels, and it's dangerous. And Occidental had one come in, I think, in 19,000 barrels or something like that, one day. And in a year and a half, it becomes practically nothing. It's a different business, in effect. And the United States, it's interesting. We use maybe 11 and a fraction. Well, we produce 11 and a fraction million barrels of oil equivalent a day. But if shale stopped, it would drop to 6 million very fast. Well, just imagine taking 5 million barrels a day out of the production in the world, and then we're also taking down our strategic petroleum reserve. Strategic petroleum reserve is the ultimate oil field. You don't have to drill. It's just that we've got it, and it was supposed to be strategic, but it gets involved in politics. And so when you're about the oil business, you're talking about different kinds of businesses, basically. And we like Occidental's position in the Permian, and we wouldn't like that position. It got to minus one day. It got to minus $30 a barrel. That was crazy, of course. But if oil sells at X, you do very well, and if it sells at half of X, your costs are the same, and it doesn't change the production, and it doesn't work as well, but it also brings down the oil production of the United States very fast. So we don't know what oil prices will be, but we do very much like the Occidental position they have, and that's why we financed them a few years ago, and it looked like it was a terrible mistake when the oil market just totally collapsed, and then it changed around, and we bought a lot of the common stock. In the last few months, they've reduced our preferred, which we don't like, obviously. We'd be disappointed in them if they didn't reduce it. It's intelligent from their standpoint. So we've taken, of the $10 billion preferred, we've gotten maybe $400 or $500 million of it retired at 110% of par. But Vicki Hollub she's an extraordinary manager of Occidental. Her first job was with the city service. That was the first stock I bought in 1942. She knows what happens beneath the surface. I know the math of it, but I wouldn't have the faintest idea what to do if I was in an oil field. I can dig 2 feet down. I can't in my backyard, and that's my understanding of subsoil in the world. I can't picture the field that Charlie has been collecting that monthly check from 50 plus years, 60 years roughly, or my sister getting at various fields where they just keep pumping and pumping and pumping. And we in the United States are lucky to have the ability to produce the kind of oil we've got from shale, but it is not a long-term source like you might think by watching movies about oil or something of the sort. Charlie, do you have anything?
Yeah, it really dies fast, those shale wells. If you like quick death in your oil wells, we have them for you.
No. But Occidental, they're doing a lot of good things.
Yeah, they drill a lot of new wells, and
Yeah,
they're doing it at a profit, but it's a different kind of oil
it's
business.
just different. Yeah, yeah. And that's true of almost half the oil produced in the United States. And there's
There's
times.
a lot of oil down there that nobody knows how to produce, and they've been working at it for like 50 years. But they worked at the existing shale production for about 50 years before they figured it out. And it was weirdly complicated when they finally were able to do it. There's only one type of sand that works.
Can you imagine a horizontal pipe, that maybe a mile and a half or something? It's just so different than what you think about.
Goes laterally for 3 miles, 2 miles down.
Yeah.
How in the hell do you drill 2 or 3 miles laterally when you're already 2 or 3 miles under the earth? They've mastered a lot of very tricky technology to be able to get any oil out of these wells at all.
And we love the position with Occidental, and
Yeah.
we love having Vicki run it, and they've been.
And there's a lot more oil down there if anybody can figure out another magic trick. That's all we need is another magic trick.
But Occidental has some other things too.
Yes, but
The price of oil still is incredibly important in terms of the economics of short-lived oil. I mean, no question about that. And,
well, if it's
and we will, incidentally, there's speculation about us buying control. We're not going to buy control. We don't want to. We've got the right management running it. I mean, we wouldn't know what to do with it. Charlie wouldn't mind knowing what to do in an oil field.
admitting you're buying coal would be like going out and seeking to acquire a cancer or something. You can't even borrow to expand a coal mine now. It's really it got very unfashionable.
Yeah, and we think, frankly, some of the things said are ridiculous, and on both sides, in both extremes. I mean, you're dealing with physics. You're dealing with, it's the politicization of positions on something that's enormously important in terms of energy. It just lends itself to demagogues and fundraisers and advisory organizations and everybody in sight. And we will make rational decisions, and we do not think it's un-American to be producing oil.
And there is no oil basin in the United States that compares to the Permian in terms of promise.
Yeah, we were lucky.
Well,
We didn't know it was there until
Yes.
not that many years ago.
It had sort of been used up, and they always knew the shale oil was there, but they thought it was going to stay unrecoverable forever.
The second or third stock I bought was Texas Pacific Land Trust, and they owned 3 million acres down there in P, and they were grazing revenues of $10,000 a year or something like that. And they were sitting on this incredible amount of oil, and basically that company is now actually part of Chevron, and it went through Texaco and did all kinds of things, and there's still a Texas Pacific Land Trust, but a lot of that property is fee owned by their minerals are owned by Chevron, which is some advantage, but it's an interesting subject, I'll put it that way, and we will not be making any offer for control of Occidental, but we love the shares we have, and we may or may not own more in the future, but we certainly have warrants on which we got as part of the original deal on a very substantial amount of stock at around $59 a share, and the warrants last a long time, and I'm glad we have them. Okay.